All right, and I have to cut that one short for you there, Saints. But Spirit of Praise, number 9 there by Mamzalwane. It's trending at number 1 this week, and that's how we get you through our top 5 trending tracks for the week. Just to recap, at number 5 we had Sipongwenya Jesufike Kuseni featuring Tina Zongo there live. And after that we had Baroris Vamorena Umuhao Wamodimo, and then Elevation Worship at number 3, Trust in God featuring Chris Brown and Isaiah Templeton. At number 2, Megan Woods, The Truth, and now number 1, Spirit of Praise, number 9, and Bamam Zalwane is the track over there. Of course, we promised you our special guest this morning, who's coming to share pearls of wisdom on a number of things, but more importantly, just to share her professional journey as a human capital, or people professional HR. I don't know what it is these days. She'll tell us what it is these days. And so that's how we get you to start our conversation with Shalin Ledwaba. Good morning.
Good morning, Ronnie. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. I mean, we were in high school together.
We were.
Can you imagine?
It feels like a 360 moment.
Emmanuel Christian School. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But I mean, tell us a bit about your professional journey. I mean, how do you end up, being an HR, executive or professional? Because I mean, back in the day, I don't know if HR was even a thing to think about.
Wasn't.
Doctors, lawyers,
nurses,
teachers were like the things we knew could, anyone could become.
Yeah. So I always say I think HR found me because I honestly, growing up, we weren't exposed to HR professionals. Lutherhat or Makalo now is a really small town. Chitandani. I don't think you even know one HR professional even now who sits there, So I think it just found me. There was, back in the day, there was a little advert in the Star newspaper, The Workplace, remember? The pull-out section? And I was looking for a job because things at home were rough. And my mom said to me, if you leave varsity, you're going to find a job and you're going to find your own studies. So literally, that was the agreement. And I found this little advert in the newspaper, and this agency was looking for a recruitment agency receptionist. So I applied for this job, and literally that's how HR found me. Worked in a recruitment agency, got promoted after about 3 months to a junior recruiter, and the rest is really history.
Well, that's quite incredible. I also say that industrial psych also found me because there was no model for it, or there was no one that I could say is an industrial psychologist growing up. And so I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I thought, where is this thing being? Because my goal going to varsity was I'm going to become a doctor. And so growing up, tell us a bit about, take us back into, as a child, in the household, what kind of values, were you raised with, what did it feel like to be in the household growing up?
So, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I'm the firstborn child of 4. I've got 3 younger brothers, and I was raised by a single mom.
Only girl.
The only girl, the lucky deputy mom. I was raised by my mom, who coincidentally was also in radio. And I think early on I needed to grow up quickly, so that was the first thing. But in terms of values, I mean, my mom spent a lot of time giving back to the community. Loving her job because she was really passionate about what she was doing, which meant that I needed to kind of step up as the deputy mom from a really early age. And I think the one thing that my mom was clear about is you need to be kind. Regardless of your position, regardless of where you end up in life, just be kind. And I think I still try to lead by those values. I try and instill them in my children. I think a lot in my household is negotiable except kindness. So you do need to be kind, and you need to be respectful, and you need to give people space to fully be who they are. And I think it is so profound now in the space that I'm at, right? Because in HR, you really want to make sure that you are being inclusive in the workplace. You want people to come as they are and really be their best selves in the workplace. And the only way you get the best out of people is really if you allow them the space to be themselves and to thrive. So kindness, definitely, and I think also just, showing up as your best self and working hard. Working hard was a non-negotiable, and I grew up seeing my mom work extremely hard. So I knew that that wasn't negotiable.
Yeah.
Working hard is a non-negotiable for me, and I know, I get judged sometimes because I don't spend a lot of time at home. So there's a lot of parts of my life that I've needed to outsource. But I think really, I always say God has been in the detail. Every single area of my life really has been crafted by Him. Even when I didn't know what was happening in that season, it makes sense now, looking back. There was a purpose, His journey was planned, and I just need to show up as best as possible.
Yeah. You're speaking about quite a number of things, of kindness, working hard, letting people be themselves. I mean, in the workplace now, you spoke about inclusivity. It's a big word. I'm doing a project, by the way, in diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
And it's quite heart-wrenching to see that 30 years into democracy, workplaces, although they look like they're transformed, but we haven't actually found each other. And you find there's a lot of tension in the workplace because we are so diverse, and nobody has said this is how a diverse team actually can become productive. So what are you seeing in your space around inclusivity, around diversity? I mean, you're recruiting young graduates. What things are you solving for around that?
So I think, and I'm a big advocate for this in the workplace, we're not having enough courageous conversations about who we are.
Yeah.
So we shy away and we use career limiting moves as a threat, and we say, oh my gosh, that could be career limiting, when actually I want you to be your best self, bring your best self to work. I drive a really high performing team, which I'm extremely proud of, and I think what's kept us intact is really the fact that I need you to feel safe in the space. So psychological safety is a big thing for us. I need you to tell me how you need me to lead you to be your best self.
Right.
And I don't think too many leaders are having those conversations with their teams. They're not having these conversations at exco meetings.
They make us vulnerable, and we don't want to.
We don't want to be vulnerable, right? Because I'm not going to be my best self when I'm feeling vulnerable. I want to be safe, and I want to say what I'm feeling, and I want to move the organization to greater heights. But I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm scared. And I think we need to do more at a C-suite level around talking about people and not just the numbers. In the absence of people, guys, you're driving your business to the ground. And I think we've earned our seat at the table as HR professionals. And we just really need the right people to hear us out.
And I mean, talking about, earning our right to the table. Often people look at human capital or HR as a support function, non-core to the business. But on the other side, you'll read most company statements say, people are our biggest asset. How do you balance the two? Are we even balancing the two?
I think we're getting better at giving HR the seat. It's completely impossible for you to plan strategically as C-suite in the absence of people. And this is where your group CHRO, chief people officers come into play, right? Where we start talking about the people agenda, how we develop our people, how we retain our people, and how we attract the right people into the organizations. There are some organizations that are doing amazing work, and you see it by their values, and the people values are embedded into the organizational values. You see it in the strategy in terms of where they want to take their talent in the next 5 years. There are some organizations that are not doing that very well. And let's see where they're sitting in the next 10 years.
No, absolutely. And you've done quite a lot of work with young talent, and you call yourself the advocate for young talent in the workplace. Tell us a bit more about that.
Ronnie, so it's a space I'm extremely passionate about. I think I have intentionally stayed in this space because it is what helps me really feel purposeful in my work. So I sit on the board of the South African Graduate Employers Association for about a year now. And this organization really has benchmarked what graduate programs look like in this country.
Absolutely.
I think we were so far away 10 years ago, and the things that Segea has done in this country to actually elevate best practice for graduates is amazing. I'm looking forward to what the future holds for graduate programs in this country. For me, the reason I stay in the space is it is probably the one space in HR where you really get to make the biggest impact.
Yeah.
So think about me. If my mom was a domestic worker and I suddenly had an opportunity to get to university, I don't know how an aircon works to my colleague who grew up with an aircon in their household. I'm walking into the space and I'm being rated on how this aircon works, and so is my colleague. We haven't started at the same level.
The playing field is
playing field is not even.
Yeah.
So my job is to make sure that by the time we go into performance, retention, I have gotten you to a place where you know how to dismantle that aircon, put it back together, and make sure that it's operational. And I think it's such a, some people get their calling in the pulpit. I feel like my calling is in the corporate space.
Right.
Because I have really, really seen the impact that the programs we've run have made in people's lives. It's so amazing when you look on LinkedIn and you see your graduates from 5 years ago become managers and are leading teams, and you're like, oh my goodness, this kid really just needed an opportunity, and here they are thriving. So for me, it's really just fulfilling. I keep saying my purpose and my passion are aligned. My career, again, it's been in God's detail, right?
Yeah.
So
and we'll talk about that, because I think there is a role that faith plays, whether you are Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever, but there's a role that faith plays, either in business or in the professions. But let's go back to the graduate programs and developing young people and young talent. You are in the legal fraternity right now.
Yeah.
What are some of the programs that you are that are available for young people that want to access those professions in the legal space?
So I work for a Big 5 law firm, and we run a virtual internship program. So if you guys Google legal virtual internship program, we're the first internship program that's going to come up, so you'll know exactly where I work. And what we run is, we run this program for students who come out of grade 10 all the way to varsity.
Okay. And
it's a real internship program, so it's simulated exercises that you get to experience as you would working in a Big 5 law firm. You put this on your CV as workplace experience, right? Because it really is about 40 hours of workplace experience, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle to get.
Yeah.
They battle to get workplace experience. And it's interesting because when I spoke to some of my colleagues across the Big 5 law firms, they've actually said, Sha, we take graduates who put that on their program, on their CV, because we know that they're serious about application into the law fraternity. So that's the one. We also run a candidate attorney program for guys who are studying their LLB degrees, and ideally in a Big 5 law firm we want you to apply 2 years before you complete. We hire 2 years in advance, so if you are finishing this year and you think there's space for next year, no,
wait for 4.
You are late.
Yeah.
We've opened applications now for 2027, which means that you are late.
Oh my goodness.
Uh-huh.
We're in 2024, so...
I know. So 2025 is completely full. 2026, we're 50% full, and now we're recruiting for 2027.
My goodness.
So it's quite competitive, right?
Yeah.
And we really, really take pride in the programs that we run. We are sitting at number 1 in terms of the best law graduate program in the country.
Yeah.
I think an accolade myself and my team are extremely proud about. If you are looking to get into a good graduate program, and it's so important, Ronnie, the good graduate programs, because your hand is held from day 1 all the way to the end, right? You're supported, you're developed, you're trained, and then hopefully you're retained at the end of the 24 months.
Yeah.
And I think law firms are really rolling out the red carpet for graduates. And all we need is for you to really just show up. When we're on campus, come meet with us.
Yeah.
When we're having webinars, engage with us. There's a lot of access to information.
Where do people get access to these programs? Are they just online on your website, or are you still doing the physical graduate fairs on campuses around the country? How do people get hold of this information?
So I can ask your listeners to follow me on LinkedIn. I am Shalin Ledwaba on LinkedIn, Shalin Ledwaba, Ledwaba. There's a lot of information in terms of the programs that we run, a lot of stuff that I share. You can go to our website. So I work for Bowman's, so Bowman's law.co.za, and you will essentially find you'll find all of the information around our graduate programs.
Yeah.
I think it's actually bowmanslaw.com. Sorry, it's too early on a Sunday morning, but it's bowmanslaw.com, and you'll get all of the access to our graduate programs. I would also encourage you to follow Bowman's Grads on Instagram, a very busy page that actually depicts all of the work that we're doing. So quite engaging and interactive for young people looking to get into the workplace.
Yeah. And I mean, are young people coming out of university with the right set of skills? I know in terms of qualification, yes, they'll come out with a law degree. I think it's an LLB now, right?
Yeah.
But generically, in terms of workplace effectiveness, what do we see? What are the gaps we're seeing there?
And there's so many, right? There's so many. So yes and no. I think there's some educational institutions that do this better than others.
Yeah.
And we see it just based on data over the last 5 years that's of students coming in, being retained, and actually showing up and becoming, high performers in the workplace. There are some other institutions that are actually not putting effort into work readiness. So what we are doing, a lot of us, is as graduate recruiters, we wake up on a Saturday morning and we share lots of information.
Yeah.
We're doing that. There are programs. I know that Sigia runs a number of work readiness programs as well. I'd encourage you to get in touch with them. We are also running webinars as a graduate team at Bowman's, where we engage with students who are looking to get into a law firm like ours. We talk about the process, how you show up as the best candidate possible.
Yeah.
But also there's a lot of, guys, use TikTok, right? Use TikTok for the right things. I see my kids doing dance challenges, which is great, but there's a lot of content around work readiness. So I'd encourage you to pick up on those and share with your friends. There's also a lot of stuff that happens on LinkedIn where people are talking about how to get work ready and corporate ready. So I'd encourage you to really research and look at what we're doing as graduate recruiters in this country to help you get into corporate SA.
Yeah, and what are some of the pitfalls that you see as you are recruiting graduates? I know when I put out an internship advert, every time I see so many common mistakes, which I think, but why are we still having these mistakes in 2024? If people are complaining about high unemployment, and that there are no opportunities, but when something comes up, you see no effort whatsoever in the person, how they show up before you even interview them.
So I think some of the most common mistakes that I've seen are probably spelling errors. And when I see spelling errors on your CV, I say, if you can't get your CV right, how are you going to show up in an interview when we give you a written case, right?
Yeah.
Like, guys, Microsoft Word is user-friendly. There's a review button there. It says check spelling. Please do that. Check grammar. So do things like that. And then we also see people with pictures that are completely unprofessional on their CVs.
Right.
We see color or with borders on your CV. There are, guys, no, that's not okay. Also, please don't send me as a reference your mother's number, because your mother is going to be biased to you as a person.
Of course, everybody's mom thinks they're great.
Exactly. We all think our children are great when actually you may not be that great. So be professional. Make sure that you are talking as much as possible about yourself, so that we know how to differentiate you from the other 6,000 applications who've applied. I think it's important, so especially when you're a graduate, summary around yourself, right, is so important. Take the time, make an effort in your CV. I've seen many CVs, and because I've done this for a long time, I can properly see the people who haven't put effort.
Yeah.
And I'm not about to put effort into a graduate who's not putting effort to get into the workplace.
Right.
We get about between 4,000 and 6,000 applications every year. We take 35 students, and that is the competition.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, how do you become part of the 35? And take it seriously, guys. You've got one shot.
Yeah. And it's quite incredible. I mean, I've seen people sending scanned CVs, illegible CVs. People still write, their health status and
their ID number.
ID number. I mean, where do you start?
Listen, so I think if you're going to scan your CV, and I'm also very aware and empathetic to the fact that we live in a country where access is a problem.
Right.
But we also know that there are internet cafes, your father's friend might know somebody who's able to help you put up your CV. If you scan your CV, we work with an applicant tracking system.
Yeah.
And the majority of these applicant tracking systems, or ATSs as they're known, are going to completely kick you out of the system because they're not able to read your CV, right? So a lot of them have what we call CV pairing. And if you're able to upload your CV, they're able to then scan all of the details. But if you just scan your CV, this ATS is going to kick you out. We're not going to get it. And then you're going to think, the people at Bowman's don't like me.
Right.
Actually, we didn't even receive your application. It didn't come through. So please, can I ask that you do make an effort, understand how applicant tracking systems work so that you are prepared in terms of the format of your CV and the application that you are submitting.
And that's quite important. So, and I just think it's a tragedy because there's so much information online. There's AI now. There are a whole lot of resources that can be used to make sure that people are ready to apply for such opportunities. And so the time is 8 minutes before 8 o'clock. The time flies when we're having these conversations. So let's have a quick ad break, and we're going to be back with Ms. Shalin Ledwaba after this.
Calls from different insurance agents for a car. I don't even own a car. I wonder where they got my contacts from. I have even blocked their contacts.
Friend, don't you know Bobia? The Protection of Personal Information Act. The information regulator can help. This act allows you to request companies to remove your information from their databases. Bobia requires them to get consent first before contacting you, especially if you have not given them your information.
Really?
And if they persist after you have told them to stop calling you, you can lodge a complaint with the regulator. Don't expose your details on social media posts. Hide your private information. This makes you vulnerable to those who use your information unlawfully, and that's why we have Bobia.
And how do I contact the regulator?
Simple. Lodge a complaint using Form 5 available on their website at inforegulator.org.za. Email the form to popiacomplaints@inforegulator.org.za or call.
All right, and if you just joined us, this is Kofifi FM 97.2. My name is Ronnie. We've got our special guest this morning, Ms. Shalin Ledwaba, an HR professional who works in the talent space, dealing with graduates, in the legal fraternity. And so we're wrapping up our conversation. We're 7 minutes before the top of the hour, and so I want to take some time just talk about, your journey as well. So women in the workplace. You're a black woman. You are in a predominantly male profession, white male profession for that matter. How are women showing up in the workplace?
We're showing up, we're doing our best, and I think without losing yourself, I think what I've seen a lot of people do is hide in the shadows and not be their authentic selves in the boardroom. I am very unapologetic about the work that I do and the spaces that I show up in. And yes, not everyone who has held my hand in corporate SA has looked like me. Some of them have been male, some of them have been white. Some of them have been white females. But I've also had black females who've really held my hand and who've opened up doors for me that I am super grateful for. I think if you are planted there, you really need to show up in that space, in that season. We take for granted our voice in the boardrooms, especially at executive level. And I think we need to be louder, and we need to continue to create space for the people who come after us. What has been extremely disappointing is seeing other females completely drag down other females in the workplace. Not my circus, not my monkeys. No, guys, we don't do that in the workplace. When you see somebody else doing the wrong thing, bullying people in the workplace as a senior resource, please speak up, please fix it. Or else we're never going to get the workplace ready. And the generation that is coming after us, your guys, they are louder, they are bolder, and they need to come into a place that is ready for them. Or else we are really going to completely lose our workforce. We're seeing mental health right at the top of concerns for organizations, and a lot of it comes from the managers that people work with. And really, if I'm a manager and I am having a bad day, it's unnecessary to take it out on my team.
Right.
Can I just take a mental health day so that I can find myself,
yeah.
so that I don't bleed on other people? And I think that is important. But it's really important not to lose yourself. Male dominated, race, different race dominated, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just be loud about why you're there and be credible, because I think that's also important.
Credibility, and that's built by performance, isn't it?
It's built by performance.
Showing up in consistency.
Consistency, exactly.
So you spoke about a lot of things 4 minutes before we finished. we just got started. What's the importance of culture? And I'm going to ask you this because I read a very heartbreaking story on LinkedIn on Friday. A lady that worked for EY in India, put her whole life, her whole heart into it, became a CA, did the board exams, did everything, worked 24/7 literally, and she passed away from stress. Nobody showed up that came, the very same people that she put all her time in, the very same environment that she put all her time in, never showed up for her.
Her funeral.
At her funeral. Yeah. And her parents were, and I'm so glad because, the parents were awake enough to say, but this is not right, and we need to raise it. And I hope that, the EY India has responded. But I mean, what do we say to such things around, culture, a culture that is so toxic, that doesn't allow you to say, but I am tired, I'm not coping anymore, because now you're a female, then you're thinking, all the men are going to think, I see, that's why we don't hire women, So what do we say to such things around culture in organizations?
So culture is very important for me personally, Ronnie. I think that saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. It actually doesn't matter how great your strategy is, how great and amazing your brand is. In the absence of a good culture and an inclusive culture, you are going to fail your people. I think I walked into a law firm and I was scared about the things I've heard, and I've watched Suits, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is that what I'm joining? But I came into a place that has allowed me to innovate, that has allowed me to have a voice, and that has allowed me to really grow and develop my team, which for me talks to culture, and it helps me become the best version of myself. I think culture goes wrong when we are in environments where we need to change who we are.
Right.
And where we see our leaders changing who they are. Just be authentic. This notion of being authentic in the workplace is so important, because people get the real you, and you connect with people as a human being. And I think that's super important. There will be hard days, even in the best cultures. Clients are clients, they want what they want, but it's also important to know that people have my back here, regardless of the hard days, the good days. Culture it's a non-negotiable. It's also a space that I'm extremely passionate about, because I think if the environment starts to change you, you need to leave that environment. Don't ever sacrifice your whole life for a workplace. There's so much more to Shalin as a person than just being the head of talent acquisition. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I love hiking, and the worst thing that will happen to me is I'll move back home to Limpopo and I'll find another job, but I'll be happier. And yes, I may need to make a couple of adjustments, but I'm happy and I'm not dying of stress, throwing myself off a building for an organization that actually just doesn't care.
And that might not even be there when you need them the most. Exactly. Oh man, we're out of time.
Oh my goodness, that was quick.
What do you say? What are your final words for our listeners this morning?
So guys, thank you so much for having me today. I think I'm going to leave you with this. Trust your journey, even when it doesn't make sense. I promise you it will eventually. I think I am a testimony to the fact that when God puts you in certain spaces, show up fully, because you never know who's watching. And don't compare your journey to your peers' journey. We're all different, circumstances are different, but if you show up, life will definitely show up for you.
Absolutely, and that's how we wrap it up for this morning. Thank you so much, Shalin.
Thanks,
for
Ronnie.
the beautiful conversation, talking about being authentic in a number of spaces where we are, and not changing who we are, and showing up just as your authentic self, and the universe is watching and God is watching, and He will make sure that everything comes to fruition.
Amen.
And that's how we indeed bring it to a close for this morning's edition of the Rhythm of Praise. My name is Ronnie. Thank you very much for being with us. Until next time, God willing, God bless you, and goodbye.